"Oh, I can't unlock the door," I muttered to myself in disbelief. After a long day at work, I found my personal belongings strewn unceremoniously in front of the entrance as though they were discarded refuse. The front door appeared different, perhaps replaced, stubbornly refusing to yield to my attempts to open it. It was the final indignity in a series of hardships endured during the years I lived with my in-laws. With resolve hardening, I made a firm decision. I would not set foot in that house again. Gathering my things, I vowed to pack them into my car and return to the sanctuary of my parents' home. Months passed, and just as suddenly as I had left, a message arrived from my estranged in-laws, rekindling a connection long thought lost. "Hello, my name is Emily. I'm 35 years old. My husband, Tom, is 5 years my junior. I was completely focused on my career, and he happened to be my subordinate at work. Honestly, marriage wasn't on my radar. I wasn't keen on the idea of settling down, having never really dated before. Yet I ended up married, all thanks to his persistent pursuit. He assured me I could continue working as I pleased post-marriage, handling all household chores himself. His approach intrigued me about the prospect of marriage. And it's not that I oppose having children. Even though I had never been keen on marriage, thoughts of having children occasionally crossed my mind. Approaching 35, I realized time was running out if I wanted to start a family, so I chose to marry my current husband. Initially, it was just the two of us after we married. True to his word, he supported my career and took on most of the household responsibilities. However, our situation took a sharp turn about 6 months into our marriage when my father-in-law unexpectedly passed away. The sudden loss of my healthy father-in-law left my mother-in-law and my younger sister-in-law, Catherine, who is 33, reeling. They claimed they couldn't manage on their own. She's a freelancer with a decent income, but her focus on fan activities means her financial stability isn't robust. I always felt she should pursue a full-time job. Whenever Catherine approached me along with my mother-in-law, Tom broached the idea of us all living together. "Emily, have you considered moving in with my mom and sister? You can continue freelancing as usual, and having them around would lighten the household workload even more. What do you think?" "Tom, I'm okay with keeping up my work, but I'm not sure about taking on more household chores. If your mom moves in and we're assisting her, shouldn't she be handling most of the household tasks?" "Fair point. I'll talk to my mom and sister about it. Please think about living together. I'll wait until I hear a clear response from your mother and Catherine. I have my own life and financial considerations to take into account. I've made it clear to my husband that I want all aspects carefully considered. It may seem cold, but caregiving involves careful planning." Ultimately, my husband assured me that his family would manage all household chores. I thought about insisting on a written agreement, but kept that thought to myself. Well, they're technically family, so I trust they'll keep their word. And so we moved into my husband's family home. On our first day there, I paid a visit to greet my mother-in-law. I'm looking forward to living together. As Tom may have mentioned, I'll continue with my work as usual, so I hope you and Catherine can manage the household chores. In response, my mother-in-law didn't even glance at me before remarking, "Why did Tom marry someone like her? She works, so all the household chores will fall on me. Is that acceptable for a wife? Normally, a wife would handle both work and household duties, wouldn't she?" Her expectation that she would do it all was simply unbelievable. She made sure I heard her loud and clear before exiting the scene. "What? This isn't what I expected at all." My mother-in-law's words left me feeling uneasy about our future life together. As we busily sorted through our belongings, Catherine suddenly appeared at the doorway and remarked, "I ended up with a less than adorable sister-in-law. Poor Tom." With that, she swiftly departed. Not again. First my mother-in-law, now Catherine. I couldn't understand why they would choose to live with me after speaking about me in such a way. Later, I would discover that it was all about my money. Shortly after moving in together, I noticed something troubling. On our first day under the same roof, despite their earlier sarcastic remarks, both my mother-in-law and Catherine completely ignored me. They managed to prepare meals only when my husband was present, but they made no effort to assist with cleaning or laundry for me. I attempted to confront them about their broken promises several times. However, whenever I addressed my mother-in-law respectfully as "ma'am," she would shoot me a sharp glare and walk away, making it clear she had no intention of engaging with me. Catherine didn't behave exactly like her mother, but I found myself unable to protest against either of them. Over time, doing my own laundry and cleaning after returning from work became a regular routine. I wanted to confide in my husband about it, but I hesitated out of sympathy for him. However, their behavior began to worsen. When they faced financial constraints for leisure activities, they started subtly pressuring me for more money. Their approach was evasive, as if they preferred not to confront me directly, leaving notes under my food. Just today, I found a note from my mother-in-law. "We're in a tight spot this month. Could you lend us $300? I considered discussing it with my husband, but he seemed strapped for cash due to social obligations and drinking habits, requesting, "Could we cut down on expenses this month?" Back when he was my subordinate, I always made sure he didn't overspend on unnecessary parties. However, after changing departments post-marriage, he found it difficult to decline invitations, and these expenses began to accumulate. I found it difficult to bring up the financial demands with him, so reluctantly, I gave in to their requests, treating it as a loan. This pattern persisted for 2 years. My husband grew increasingly comfortable with not contributing to household expenses, often urging me to cut costs each month with seeming indifference. Even I had grown accustomed to this routine. I felt trapped in a cycle of endless schemes, yet there was something else I continued to do. I'll explain that shortly. One day, upon returning from work, I found numerous items scattered outside the house. Upon closer inspection, I realized they were my belongings. "What is this?" I seethed with anger at the sight of my belongings treated so disrespectfully. Determined to voice my grievances, I attempted to unlock the front door, only to find that my key no longer worked. Damn it. They changed the locks while I was gone. I can't take this anymore. Surveying my scattered belongings, I pondered my next steps. That's when I noticed another note beneath the items. It read, "Don't ever return. We don't want to see your face. Consider yourself lucky we didn't toss out your stuff." What terrible in-laws. My mother-in-law and Catherine were undoubtedly the masterminds behind this. I wondered what Tom had said about the situation, but by now, it didn't matter to me. Luckily, I had my car keys handy. I quickly loaded as many of my belongings as I could into the car and drove straight to my parents' house. I felt relieved knowing my things were safe. At least my work wouldn't be affected the next day. Arriving at my parents' home, they were visibly shocked but warmly welcomed me back. It felt comforting to be in my childhood home again, a place I hadn't visited much in the past 2 busy years. Sipping the tea my mother brewed, surrounded by the familiar warmth, my father asked me, "Why did you bring all your belongings here? Did you leave their house?" Marriage requires patience, I mused, reflecting on the weight of those words. For 2 years, my interactions with my mother-in-law and Catherine were sparse, limited mostly to the occasional reminder notes about money. Tom gradually became reliant solely on my income, and recently it felt like he viewed me merely as a convenient ATM. I endured this situation until now. When I confided in my parents, they empathized, saying, "Emily, you've been patient enough. We won't ask you to endure any longer. Now that they've driven you away, there's no reason to go back, right? Perhaps you should consider sending Tom a divorce notice." That's true. He seemed like a decent young man when you marry him, but money has a way of changing people. It's a shame. Both my father and mother showed genuine sympathy for me, a kindness I hadn't experienced in the past 2 years. Tears unexpectedly welled up in my eyes. "Has it been that tough for you?" my father asked, his expression filled with concern. "No, it's just that I haven't felt this level of sympathy in a long time. It's comforting, like you said, Dad. I'll send Tom the divorce papers, but I want to observe the situation for a while. I have a feeling something interesting might unfold soon." Indeed, I sensed that some action would unfold soon. Surprisingly, that moment arrived about 3 months later. By then, I had moved out of my parents' home and settled into a new apartment of my own. Never did I imagine reclaiming control over my earnings to spend as I please. I hired a household service for chores, freeing me to enjoy my days off with trips and purchases I had long desired, unrestrained. Each day reminded me of the value of my hard-earned income. I began questioning why I endured those 2 years. It dawned on me that perhaps I had been influenced or even manipulated by my in-laws. Then, precisely 3 months after my keys were changed and my belongings cast out, my smartphone buzzed with an unexpected call. Initially, I considered ignoring it. After dismissing the first call, my phone buzzed again, then a third time in rapid succession. They must be in some trouble, I surmised. I picked up the next call, and immediately the fourth one came through. "Hello, Emily. Where are you? I went to your parents' house, but they wouldn't tell me. I also tried your workplace, but they wouldn't disclose your whereabouts. It was my mother-in-law, someone who had ignored me for the past 2 years. Her voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time, sounded cautious. Despite answering the call, I remained silent for a moment, relishing the anticipation of what she might say next. Hello, Emily. Are you there? Come back soon and restore our lives. We can't even afford to go out and enjoy ourselves. What are we supposed to do now? I had thought that living without spending money on leisure would suffice, but evidently that wasn't the case. Our phone and electricity are on the verge of being cut off. We're at our wits' end. Please come back immediately. Does she not realize she's only thinking of herself? Shouldn't she begin with an apology for throwing me out? Until she grasps that, I had no intention of responding. Emily, you're not saying anything. Are you listening at all? Doesn't it bother you to hear that we're in such dire straits? Realizing she wasn't going to offer an apology, I decided to end the call and press the button to hang up. She seems to have no concept of remorse. The next day, my phone rang again. Hello, Emily. Why did you ignore Mom's call yesterday? Even though we're in trouble, you didn't make any effort to help. She couldn't tell if you were even listening. Ignoring calls like that isn't very mature. This time, it was Catherine calling. Honestly, calls from Catherine have always been the most bothersome, and she had the nerve to lecture about not ignoring calls. They've ignored me for 2 years, and suddenly I'm the one in the wrong. I couldn't believe her audacity. I planned to endure the call a bit longer, but without an apology, I had no intention of responding. I heard from Mom, but we're facing financial troubles at home. Our phone and electricity might get cut off soon. Without AC this heat, we could suffer from heat stroke. Can you live with that if our phone goes dead? How will we reach you? So please come back soon and help us pay the overdue bills. Her selfish demands made it easy for me to keep ignoring her. Hey, are you listening? You haven't said a word. Oh, are you still upset about what happened 3 months ago? That was obviously just a joke. You're overreacting. As an adult, you should know the difference between a joke and a serious matter. Stop being stubborn and come back home. They threw out my belongings like trash and changed the locks so I couldn't get in. That's a clear message for me not to return. Even if they claim it was all a joke or prank now, I find it hard to believe. Since Catherine doesn't seem interested in apologizing either, I decided to end the call. It would be a waste of time to listen to her any longer. The next day, I finally received a call from my husband. Hello, Emily. I'm sorry. My mother, my sister, and we all realize we've done terrible things. Can you come back? Our household is falling apart. We're out of money, everyone's on edge, and tensions are high. We sincerely apologize and want you back, please. My husband seemed to feel the need to apologize at least, but it's too late now. Why did he ignore me for 3 months? If it had only been the first 3 days, I might have considered returning, but it's been 3 months. I've embraced my new life, enjoying every moment of independence. There's no reason for me to return to that family now. I appreciate your apology, but given everything that's happened, I have no intention of coming back. Tom, why were you unreachable for 3 months? How could you do that as a husband? I looked into things, and guess what? I found out you've been cheating, haven't you? That's what the detective agency told me. Thanks for treating me like an ATM for 2 years. I'll be sending divorce papers. Please handle it accordingly. Maybe my husband thought he wouldn't get caught. What a fool. Yet he still had the nerve to say, I want you to come back. So I replied, if you reimburse me for all the living expenses for the 3 of us over the past 2 years and repay the money I lent you, maybe I'll consider it. Let's see, that's about $20,000. Can you manage that? I said mockingly. I knew he couldn't pay, but I said it anyway. After that, my husband fell silent and abruptly ended the call. Perhaps he finally realized my decision was firm. What happened next? When I sent the divorce papers and a bill for emotional distress to my husband, he returned the signed divorce papers promptly. Now all I need to do is file them at the city office and the divorce will be finalized. Regarding the compensation, he transferred the money right away. In fact, I included a note with a bill threatening to expose him to his company if he didn't pay promptly. Fearful of this, my husband likely sought a loan to cover the compensation. I heard from sources that their family home is now on the market. It seems they're struggling financially and trying to raise funds. However, selling their primary residence hastily means they'll now have to rent elsewhere. Considering the cost of rent and utilities, selling their house may not have been the wisest decision. They were likely driven by the immediate need for cash and didn't think through the long-term consequences. Whatever happens to that family is no longer my concern. As for me, I'm thoroughly enjoying my single life. I've had my fill of marriage. Moving forward, I plan to work hard and savor my personal life, embracing my independence.